Hello, my name is Zinnia Hansen. I'm the current Seattle Youth Poet Laureate. I'm a poet and essayist from Port Townsend, Washington, studying classics and linguistics at the University of Washington. I have a tendency towards abstraction, but a deep love of the idiosyncrasies that make us human. I like to think my poetry engages simultaneously with the political sphere while also transcending it. I'm so honored that I've been asked to be in this space as the MC for the 2022 Washington State Poetry Out Loud Final. I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the first people of Tacoma, the Coast Salish people, specifically the Puyallup tribe, past and present. With honor and gratitude to the land itself, we encourage each of you to learn about the land legacies and stories of the indigenous communities who have called the Pacific Northwest home since time immemorial. Before we dive into the program, I would like to introduce composer, teacher, and musician Kareem Candy. Over the years, Kareem has performed, toured, and recorded with a long list of musical luminaries. The Kareem Candy World Orchestra has a sound that is fresh, innovative, and appeals to a wide variety of audiences. Kareem is joined today by Greg Feingold on bass, and we are pleased to welcome them both to another Poetry Out Loud event. We are here today to share the gift and power of language as presented by 8 students from around the state who are the top scoring students in the regional final competitions. They are from grades 9 through 12 and come from schools of all different kinds. Here to say a bit more about Poetry Out Loud and the program in Washington State is Arts and Education Program Manager Tamar Cranes.
As the Arts and Education Program Manager at ArtsWA, I'm honored to be here with you for the 17th Washington State Poetry Out Loud competition. The Arts and Education Program works to increase access to the arts for all students in every corner of our beautiful state. Arts and education includes engagement with the literary arts, theater, visual arts, media arts, dance, folk and traditional arts, and music. Through the arts, students also can make endless interdisciplinary connections. This event is a great example of how the arts can bring us together. The Poetry Out Loud program is only possible because of an extensive network. Thank you to the students, educators, and community members who continue to persevere through challenging and often uncertain times to embrace a program like Poetry Out Loud, one which opens doors to literature and beyond. POL builds critical thinking, self-confidence, and presentation skills, and empathy. Every year, this program comes to life because of the daily work of teachers across the state. The last 2 years has been wildly difficult for schools and teachers. Thank you, teachers, for showing up for students and families through it all. We are especially grateful to our POL teacher liaisons, Dory Whitford and Amy Solo. These teacher liaisons help build a supportive community for teachers integrating the Poetry Out Loud program. A special shout out to Dory, who has been the POL lead teacher at Meade High School for over a decade and who will be retiring at the end of this school year. Thank you, Dory. Poetry Out Loud in Washington State would not be possible without our regional partners across the state, the Skagit River Poetry Foundation in Mount Vernon, Education Service District, or ESD, 112 in Vancouver, Yakima Valley College in Yakima, and Spokane Arts in Spokane. This year, they were joined by Tacoma Little Theater, who worked with us to produce the pilot of POL Virtual and as our production partner for the state finals. You'll see the names of our regional coordinators as well as the lead teachers for all the registered schools in this year's POL in our downloadable program booklet. The link to that booklet is in the description notes for the broadcast, or go to www.arts.wa.gov/poetryoutloud to get your copy. For those of you new to this program, Poetry Out Loud works similar to a spelling bee. Students across the state work at the classroom level and then participate in classroom competitions. Classroom champions go on to school-wide competitions. The school champions went on to one of 4 regional finals. And then the top students from those regional finals, plus the top student from POL Virtual, are reciting here today, and one of them will become the Washington State Poetry Out Loud champion and will represent our state in the national finals taking place during the months of May and June. What you will witness in this event is great poetry elevated by youth voices through a competition format. And of course, Poetry Out Loud is so much more than a competition. What you won't get to see are the nearly 10,000 students and their teachers in Washington State who connected with poetry with each other through this program this year. It has been 2 years since we gathered our student champions together and spent time working with them, getting comfortable with each other, with a physical venue, and expanding the community of connections that is Poetry Out Loud. We hope that at this time next year, we can celebrate youth, share poetry, and embrace the power of language in person at the 2023 Poetry Out Loud State Final.
Every year, Arts Washington invites a diverse group of artists and educators to score recitations. I'm pleased to introduce these outstanding individuals serving as this year's virtual judges. The judges score recitations using the National Poetry Out Loud evaluation criteria, and they score with great care. Let's meet them as they introduce themselves and tell you what inspires them about poetry and the voices of youth.
I'm Heidi Ayala, and I am the Associate Director of Secondary English Language Arts with the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. And I love poetry because it has the ability to transport us through words and images and metaphor to new places. It's all about possibility. And that's what I love about Poetry Out Loud. It allows us to explore our own possibility and potential.
Hello, my name is Lee Little, and I'm currently serving as a Washington State Arts Commissioner living in Olympia, Washington. I'm excited about the performances of these young students as they share the creative thoughts of some of the world's most notable poets. Well-crafted and well-delivered spoken words are highly valued skills in every field of modern life. Poetic performances are indeed all around us, and these young laureates are endeavoring to express the very best of it.
Greetings, friends. My name is Matt Mallion, Executive Director of Underground Writing, an independent arts nonprofit in Skagit County. We're devoted to creative writing workshops in underserved contexts and helping students with voice amplification. I love the arts and youth together as they learn about joining the great tradition that goes before us, and spoken word is a huge part of that, as everything is stripped down to the bare essentials of voice, a student, and the performance. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ashley McBunch, Olympia's Poet Laureate. I believe that art is necessary, and literary arts vital. I want to say that I am so honored to be able to listen to each and every one of you today. And I am so proud that you are able to get up and showcase all your talents. Congratulations on being here, and good luck to everyone.
ArtsWA o Helixon Quinnis Natachel at Hikias Hualtanats and Snatchoch Lamison. Hello everyone, I'm Rena Priest. I'm the Washington State Poet Laureate for the term of April 2021 to 2023. And I'm a member of the Tlactamish Nation. I'm the first Indigenous person to hold this post. Haishka.
Thank you, judges, for your support, as well as all you do in the worlds of arts and education. So what does judging a poetry out loud recitation involve? First, each poem must be recited exactly as it was written by the poet. A dedicated accuracy judge was present during the recitations and scored them for technical accuracy, word by word. Our judges have evaluated each recitation using criteria established by the National Poetry Out Loud program. These same criteria are used from classroom level all the way up to the national finals. The evaluation criteria are physical presence, voice and articulation, dramatic appropriateness, evidence of understanding, and overall performance. Each of these criteria areas is explained in detail in materials that are available on the Poetry Out Loud website, poetryoutloud.org. In today's program, there will be 3 rounds. All recitations you will hear are poems selected from the Poetry Out Loud anthology, which includes over 1,100 classic and contemporary poems. You will see all the students reciting one poem in each of the first 2 rounds. At the end of the second round, we will announce the 3 students with the highest accumulative scores and then move into the third and final round. One of those students will become the state champion, representing Washington State at the national finals. I'd like to introduce the Washington State Regional Champions for 2022. Isabel Bennett from POL Virtual, Sinai Flores from North Thurston High School in Olympia, Kate Gemmel from Kamayakan High School in Kennewick, Serena Jensen from Bickleton High School in Grandview, Lucy Laybourne from Lincoln High School in Seattle, Bella Moore from Mathau Valley Independent Learning Center in Twisp, Josie Rinta from Ridgefield High School in Ridgefield, Lucy Shannon from Anacortes High School in Anacortes, Melina Weigel from Okanagan High School in Okanagan. For this first round, students will be reciting in alphabetical order by last name, from the beginning of the alphabet to the end, A to Z. And now, for our very first recitation, here is Isabel Bennett.
My name is Isabel Bennett, and I will be reciting Emily Dickinson at the Poetry Slam by Dan Vera. I will tell you why she rarely ventured from her house. It happened like this. One day, she took the train to Boston, made her way to the darkened room, put her name down in cursive script, and waited her turn. When they read her name aloud, she made her way to the stage, straightened the papers in her hands, pages and envelopes, the backs of grocery bills. She closed her eyes for a minute, took a breath, and began. From her mouth, perfect words exploded, intact formulas of light and darkness. She dared to rhyme with words like cochineal, describe the skies like diadem. Obscurely worded incantations filled the room with an alchemy that made the very molecules quake. The solitary words she handled in her upstairs room with keen precision came rumbling out to make the electric lights flicker. 40 members of the audience were treated for hypertension. 20-year-old dark-haired beauties had found their heads had turned a Moses white. Her second poem erased the memory of every cell phone in the nightclub. And by the 4th line of the 6th verse, the grandmother in the upstairs apartment had been cured of her rheumatism. The papers reported the power outages. The area hospitals taxed their emergency generators, and sirens were heard to wail through the night. Quietly, she made her way to the exit, walked to the terminal, and rode back to Amherst. She never left her room again, and never read such syllables aloud.
Please welcome Sinai Flores.
Hello, my name is Sinai Flores, and I'll be reciting Burning in the Rain by Richard Blanco. Someday, compassion would demand I set myself free of my desire to recreate my father, indulge in my mother's losses, strangled lovers with words, forcing them to confess for me and take the blame. Today was that day. I tossed them, sheet by sheet, on the patio and gathered them into a pyre. I wanted to let them go in a blaze. Tiny white dwarfs imploding beside the azaleas and ficus bushes. Let them crackle. Burst like wing seeds, let them smolder into gossamer embers. 1,000 great butterflies in the wind. Today was that day, but it rained, kept raining. Instead of fire, water. Drops knocking on doors, wetting windows into mirrors, reflecting me in the oaks. The garden walls and stones swelling into ghostlier shades of themselves. The wind chimes giggling in the storm. A coffee cup left overflowing with rain. Instead of burning, my pages turn into water lilies floating over puddles. Then tiny white cliffs as the sunset finally drying all night under the moon into papier-mâché souvenirs. Today, the rain will not let their lives burn.
Next up, we have Kate Gemmel.
This is the Honey by Mahogany L. Brown. There is no room on this planet for anything less than a miracle. We gather here today to revel in the rebellion of a silent tongue. Every day we lean forward into the light of our brightest designs and cherish the sun. Praise our hands and throats, each incantation a jubilee of a people dreaming wildly, despite the dirt beneath our feet, or the wind pushing against our greatest efforts. Soil creates things. Art births change. This is the honey. And doesn't it taste like a promise? Where your heart is an accordion and our laughter is a soundtrack. Friend, dance to this good song. Look how it holds our names. Each bone of our flesh homes sings welcome. Oh, look at the gods dancing as the rain rains against the steely skyline, where grandparents sit on the porch and nod at the spectacle, in awe of the perfection of their grandchildren's faces, each small discovery unearthed in its own outpour. Tomorrow, our daughters will travel the world with each poem, and our sons will design cities against the backdrops of living museums. Yes, our children will spin chalk until each equation bursts a familial tree, rooted in miraculous possibilities and alive. Thank you.
Reciting next is Serena Jensen.
Cartoon Physics, Part 1, by Nick Flynn. Children under, say, 10 shouldn't know that the universe is ever expanding, inexorably pushing into the vacuum. Galaxies swallowed by galaxies, whole solar systems collapsing, all of it acted out in silence. At 10, we are still learning the rules of cartoon animation. That if a man draws a door on a rock, only he can pass through it. Anyone else who tries will crash into the rock. 10-year-olds should stick with burning houses, car wrecks, ships going down, earthbound, tangible disasters, arenas where they can be heroes. You can run back into a burning house. Sinking ships have lifeboats. The trucks will come with their ladders. If you jump, you will be saved. A child places her hand on the roof of a school bus and drives across a city of sand. She knows the exact spot it will skid, at which point the bridge will give, who will swim to safety, and who will be pulled under by sharks. She will learn that if a man runs off the edge of a cliff, he will not fall until he notices his mistake.
Now we welcome Lucy Laybourne.
And Soul by Avon Boland. My mother died one summer, the wettest in the records of the state. Crops rotted in the west, checked tablecloths dissolved in back gardens, empty deck chairs collected rain. As I took my way to her, through traffic, through lilacs dripping blackly behind houses and on curbsides, to pay her the last tribute of a daughter, I thought of something. I remembered I heard once that the body is, or is said to be, almost all water. And as I turned southward, that ours is a city of it, one in which every single day the elements begin a journey towards each other that will never, given our weather, fail. The ocean, visible in the edges cut by it, cloud color reaching into air, the Liffey, storing one and summoning the other, salt, greeting the lack of it at the north wall. And as if that wasn't enough, all of it ending up, almost every evening, inside our speech. Coast, canal, ocean, river, stream, and now, mother. And I drove on, and although the mind is unreliable in grief, at the next cloudburst it seemed they could be shades of each other, the way the body is of every one of them. And now they were on the move again, fog into mist, mist into sea spray, and both into the oily glaze that lay on the railings of the house she was dying in, as I went inside.
Those were all terrific poems. Thank you, Isabel, Sinai, Kate, Serena, and Lucy. We're going to take a short break here for some jazz from the members of the Korean Candy World Orchestra, and then we'll be right back with the rest of round one. That was wonderful, thank you. Kareem, I understand you've been playing for the Poetry Out Loud final competition for many years now.
Yes, I just learned recently that we've been doing this for 14 years.
Wow, that's great. Do you remember the first Poetry Out Loud final you ever played for?
Not exactly. We've done quite a few, and they all kind of blurred together, but I was also told recently that the first one was at the University of Puget Sound.
Well, it says here that the Arts Washington Poetry Out Loud records have photo evidence of the Cream Candy World Orchestra's continued participation in this event going back 14 years.
I can believe it. It's been a pleasure to be associated with this program and all the talented students and the wonderful staff that puts this together. And it has not seemed like it's been that long. It's gone in the blink of an eye, but we have a lot of great memories being a part of it.
Your music is such a wonderful complement to the poetry we are hearing today. Thank you for your continued commitment to this event and the blending of words and music.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
We continue round one with our next recitation. Please welcome Bella Moore.
Well, my coach, Tom, he really helped me through it. When I was learning to recite one art, I was like rushing through it, and then some words weren't like correct. And so my coach really helped me, and so I had to like take notes and go through my poem again. And so that his advice really helped me a lot. And also I kept watching, I actually subscribed to the Poetry Out Loud YouTube channel. And so when I had time, I'd like go in it, watch it, and then see how all the other champions did it, then take some of their notes into my poem.
Next up, we have Josie Rinta.
Sanctuary by Jean Valentine. People pray to each other the way I say you to someone else, respectfully, intimately, desperately, the way someone says you to me, hopefully, expectantly, intensely. Hub Oosternhuis. You, who I don't know. I don't know how to talk to you. What is it like for you there? Here, well, wanting solitude. And talk, friendship, the uses of solitude. To imagine, to hear, learning Braille, to imagine other solitudes, but they will not be mine. To wait in the quiet, not to scatter the voices. What are you afraid of? What will happen? All this leaving and meetings, yes, but death. What happens when you die? Not scatter the voices. Drown out, not make a house out of my own words, to be quiet in another throat, other eyes. Listen for what it is like there. What word? What silence? Allowing uncertain to drift in the restlessness. Repose, to run like water. What is it like there? Right now? Listen, the crowding of the street, the room, everyone hunches in against the crowding, holding their breath against dread. What do you dread? What happens when you die? What do you dread in this room now? Not listening now, not watching, safe inside my own skin, to die not having listened, not having asked, to have scattered life. Yes, I know the thread you have to keep finding over again to follow it back to life. I know impossible sometimes.
Reciting next is Lucy Shaman.
They are hostile nations by Margaret Atwood. 1. In view of the fading animals, the proliferation of sewers and fears, the sea clogging, the air nearing extinction, we should be kind. We should take warning. We should forgive each other. Instead, we are opposite. We touch as though attacking. The gifts we bring, even in good faith, maybe warp in our hands to implements, to maneuvers. 2. Put down the target of me you guard inside your binoculars. In turn, I will surrender this aerial photograph. Your vulnerable sections marked in red, I have found so useful. See? We are alone in the dormant field, the snow that cannot be eaten or captured. 3. Here, there are no armies. Here, there is no money. It is cold and getting colder. We need each other's breathing, warmth. Surviving is the only war we can afford. Stay walking with me. There is almost time. If we can only make it as far as the possibly last summer.
For the final recitation in round 1, we have Melina Weigel.
A thank you note by Michael Ryan. For John Scoils. My daughter made drawings with the pens you sent. Line drawings that suggest the things they represent. Different from any drawings she, at 10, had done. Closer to real art, implying what the mind fills in. For her mother, she made a flower, fragile on its stem. For me, a lion, calm, contained, but not a handsome one. She drew a line for me once before on a get well card and wrote, "I must be brave even when it's hard." Such love is healing, as you know, my friend, especially when it comes unbidden from our children, despite the flaws they see so vividly in us. Who can love you as your child does? Your son, so ill, the brutal chemo, his looming loss owning you now. Yet, you would be this generous to think of my child. With the pens you sent, she has made, I hope, a healing instrument.
We've now completed round 1. Let's have a round of applause for all the students. Go ahead, wherever you are, clap your hands and recognize these students' terrific work. We're going to take a brief break to enjoy some more music. Stay tuned, we'll resume with round 2 shortly. But now enjoy Cream Candy and Greg Feingold of the Cream Candy World Orchestra. Welcome back, everyone. These students and those that support them have worked hard to get to this moment. As I mentioned earlier, each of these students offered recitations at the classroom, school, and regional level before arriving here today. There are a lot of people who support making this happen. We'll be listing many of them at the end of this program, and as Tamar mentioned, you can also view and download a PDF booklet about today's program, listing the students and their poems, information about the judges, and a listing of individuals and partner organizations who are responsible for coordinating local schools and regional finals. Look for this link to that booklet in the description notes for this program, or go to www.arts.wa.gov/poetryoutloud to download your copy. Before we begin round two, I've been invited to share one of my poems. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'm the current Seattle Youth Poet Laureate, a program sponsored by Seattle Arts and Lectures. The Seattle Youth Poet Laureate program aims to identify youth writers and leaders committed to poetry performance, civic and community engagement, education, and equity across the Puget Sound region. And it is my pleasure to share my poem, I Contain, with you today. It was Walt Whitman who wished, who wallowed in a single starry language. I contain multitudes. It was Lorca who loved Whitman. It is I who love Lorca. It was Lorca who loved, who showed how multiverses collapse into a single point, a point burning with the hellfire of heaven. How there's blood under everything, blood between everything. How the sea stumbles, sickened by squares. It was Lorca who drew altars in sidewalk cracks and showed how a city of broken glass and stoplights is a river. How everything is a river. I salute you, death. I stand on my tippy toes and tremble, because fermenting in my gut, you become something beautiful. There are no roots, only rivers. There are no rivers, only roots. My body is a tree. This moment is a tree. My blind friend said there must be trees in this city. The air feels light enough to fly away. I contain paradoxes. I contain, I contain, I contain, I spill. it's time for round 2. We'll hear our students recite their second poem. In this round, students will be presented in alphabetical order by last name again, but with a twist. For this round, we'll be starting in the middle of the alphabet, starting with M and going to Z. Then we'll return to the beginning of the alphabet and conclude with A through L. At the end of this round, we'll find out who goes on to round 3. To start off round 2, please welcome Bella Moore.
Hi, I'm Bella Moore, and I am reciting That's My Heart Right There by Lily Prudhomme. We used to say, that's my heart right there. As if to say, don't mess with her right there. As if, don't even play. That's a part of me right there. In other words, okay. That's the start of me right there. As if, come that day, that's the end of me right there. As if push come to shove, I would fend for her right there. As if, come what may, I would lie for her right there. As if, come love to pay, I would die for that right there. Thank you.
Reciting next is Josie Rinta.
Ode to the Midwest by Kevin Young. The country I come from is called the Midwest. Bob Dylan. I want to be doused in cheese and fried. I want to wander the aisles. My heart supermarket stocked high as cholesterol. I want to die wearing a sweatsuit. I want to live forever in a Christmas sweater, a teddy bear nursing off the front. I want to write a check in the express lane. I want to scrape my driveway clean, myself, early, before anyone's awake. That'll put him to shame. I want to see what the sun sees before it tells the snow to go. I want to be the only Black person I know. I want to throw out my back and not complain about it. I want to drive 2 blocks. Why walk? I want love and stuff. I want to cut my sutures myself. I want to jog down to the river and make it my bed. I want to walk its muddy banks and make me a withdrawal. I tried jumping in, found it frozen. I'll go home, I guess, to my rooms where the moon changes and shines like television.
Please welcome our next student, Lucy Shaman.
Say not the struggle not availeth by Arthur Hugh Clough. Say not the struggle not availeth. The labor and the wounds are vain. The enemy faints not, nor faileth. And as things have been, they remain. If hopes were dupes, fears may be liars. It may be in yon smoke concealed, your comrades chase e'en now the flyers, and, but for you, possess the field. For while the tired waves vainly breaking seem here no painful inch to gain, far back through creeks and inlets making comes silent, flooding in the main. And not by eastern windows only when daylight comes in the light. In front, the sun climbs slow. How slowly? But westward, look, the land is bright.
Next up, we have Melina Weigel.
Dover Beach by Matthew Arnold. The sea is calm tonight. The tide is full. The moon lies fair upon the straits. On the French coast, the light gleams and is gone. The cliffs of England stand, glimmering and vast out in the tranquil bay. Come to the window. Sweet is the night air. Only from the long line of spray where the sea meets the moon-blanched land, listen. You hear the grating roar of pebbles which the waves draw back and fling at their return up the high strand, begin and cease. And then again begin with tremulous cadence slow and bring the eternal note of sadness in. Sophocles long ago heard it on the Aegean, and it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. We find also in the sound a thought, hearing it by this distant northern sea. The sea of faith was once too at the full and round earth's shore, lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. But now I only hear its melancholy, long withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind, down the vast edges drear and naked shingles of the world. Ah, love, let us be true to one another. For the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new, hath really neither joy, nor love, nor light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help for pain. And we are here, as on a darkling plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night.
Thank you, Bella, Josie, Lucy, and Melina. It's time for some more cool jazz from Kareem and Greg. And then we'll be right back for the rest of round 2 and the announcement of the students who will recite in our final round. Thank you, Kareem and Greg. You can find them on Facebook by searching the Cream Candy World Orchestra, and you can also find that link and more in the notes of this program. We continue round 2 with our next recitation. Please welcome Isabel Bennett.
Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Reciting next is Sinai Flores.
Songs for the People by Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. Let me make the songs for the people. Songs for the old and young, songs that stir like a battle cry whenever they are sung. Not for the clashing of sabers, for carnage nor for strife, but songs to thrill the hearts of men with more abundant life. Let me make the songs for the weary. Amid life's fever and fret, till hearts shall relax their tensions and careworn brows forget. Let me sing for little children before their footsteps stray, sweet anthems of love and duty to float earth's life's highway. I would sing for the poor and aged, when shadows dim their sight, of bright and peaceful mansions where there shall be no night. Our world, so worn and weary, needs music pure and strong, to hush the jangle and discord of sorrow, pain, and wrong. Music to soothe all its sorrow, till war and crime shall cease, and the hearts of men grow tender. Girdle the world with peace.
Reciting next is Kate Gemmell.
Siren Song by Margaret Atwood. This is the one song everyone would like to learn. The song that is irresistible. The song that forces men to leap overboard in squadrons, even though they see the beach skulls. The song no one knows because anyone who has heard it is dead, and the others can't remember. Shall I tell you the secret? And if I do, will you get me out of this bird suit? I don't enjoy it here, squatting on this island, looking picturesque and mythical with these two feathery maniacs. I don't enjoy singing this trio, fatal and valuable. I will tell the secret to you, only to you. Come closer. This song is a cry for help, help me. Only you can. You are unique at last. Alas, it is a boring song, but it works every time. Thank you.
Next up, we have Serena Jensen.
The lyric In a Time of War by Eloise Klein Healy for Sappho. Let my music be found wanting in comparison to yours, as it must. Let me be found loving as you were extravagantly beautiful. Let me find you and the song forever between us in these terrible times. Thank you.
For the final recitation in this round, Lucy Laybourne.
I think like a lot of other people have said on the call today, it teaches you things about yourself, and it gives you words to express things that you wouldn't know how to express otherwise. I think language is really powerful, and it's a very powerful way of learning things about yourself.
Congratulations, students. We've completed round 2. Let's have a round of applause for all these courageous students. In a few moments, we'll announce the students who will recite in the final round. Before we do that, I'd like to introduce the Washington State Arts Commission's Executive Director, Hanan, with a special message.
Thank you, Zinnia. I am deeply inspired by the work of young poets like Zinnia and honored to speak at this year's Poetry Out Loud event. It's exciting to see a diversity of poets laureate, including youthful voices, amplifying the power of words in communities across the nation. We can certainly say we have been living through unique times, whether a global health crisis or events that challenge the way we view the world around us. We've all had to innovate. Educators and students in the classroom have had to redefine how we teach and learn. Teachers, students, and families, it is your tremendous continuing efforts that have allowed the Poetry Out Loud program to thrive. Last year's virtual state final competition achieved over 700 views, a reach unprecedented in the history of the program in our state. Inspired by the Washington State Arts Commission's ongoing commitment to increase access to the arts in every corner of our state, this year, Poetry Out Loud Virtual was piloted as a feature of our main program, removing barriers to students attending from schools that do not typically participate in the program, as well as homeschooled students. With Tacoma Little Theatre acting as our partner, the first student cohort of POL Virtual was coordinated with youth registering from Colville, from Issaquah, and from other communities all across Washington State. As the director of the Washington State Arts Commission, I am proud of the commitment of our board, the diligence of our staff, and the work we support throughout the state to inspire art making, art sharing, and promotion of a robust creative economy. Our mission at ArtsWA is to be a catalyst for the arts, advancing the role of the arts in the lives of individuals and communities throughout the state. Our work includes programs such as Art in Public Places, grants to organizations, a Creative District Certification Program, a Heritage Arts Apprenticeship Program, Arts in Education, our Wellness, Arts, and the Military Program, and of course, the Washington State Poet Laureate. After 60 years, the Washington State Arts Commission continues to be a leader in the arts. The work that we do is made possible by funding from our state legislature and the National Endowment for the Arts. A big part of my job is to help people understand the value of investing in the arts and the creative economy, and that includes investing in arts education. The power and impact of that investment can be seen, heard, and experienced here as we are reminded of the power of words and the brilliance of youth engagement in the arts. In just a moment, our MC Zinnia Hansen will announce the 3 top-scoring students who will advance to the 3rd and final round of this competition. One of them will become the 2022 Poetry Out Loud Washington State Champion. And that person will represent all of us, including nearly 10,000 participating Washington students at the national competition in May and June. So congratulations to all our champions today. Thank you for your hard work and dedication. Thank you to your families and teachers who have encouraged and supported you. And thank you all for sharing our love and common understanding of great poetry. Thank you.
I don't know how many of you have memorized and recited poetry. The poem becomes part of your DNA, and people often remark on how the poem sticks with them word for word years later. In case you haven't ever connected with a poem in this way, let me assure you, what these students did was not easy. They put a lot of preparation, they all did excellent work, and regardless of what goes on in round 3, this whole group deserves one more round of applause. announce the top 3 students who will advance to the 3rd round. These names are not in scoring order and they are not in alphabetical order, they are in random order. From Kamayakan High School, Kate Gemmel. From Bickleton High School, Serena Jensen. From Anacortes High School, Lucy Shanan. These are our Poetry Out Loud state finalists. Let's give them a round of applause. It is now my pleasure to begin the final round of our competition today by introducing Kate Gemmel.
The Glories of Our Blood and State by James Shirley. The glories of our blood and state are shadows, not substantial things. There is no armor against fate. Death lays his icy hand on kings. Scepter and crown must tumble down, and in the dust be equal made with the poor, crooked scythe and spade. Some men with swords may reap the field and plant fresh laurels where they kill, but their strong nerves at last must yield. They tame but one another still. Early or late they stoop to fate, and must give up their murmuring breath when they, pale captives, creep to death. The garlands wither on your brow, then boast no more your mighty deeds. Upon death's purple altar now see where the victor victim bleeds. Your heads must come to the cold tomb. Only the actions of the just smell sweet and blossom in their dust. Thank you.
Our next finalist recitation will be from Serena Jensen.
The Destruction of Sennacherib by Lord Byron, George Gordon. The Assyrian came down like the wolf on the fold, and his cohorts were gleaming in purple and gold, and the sheen of their spears was like stars on the sea when the blue wave rolls nightly on deep Galilee. Like the leaves of the forest when summer is green, that hosts with their banners at sunset were seen. Like the leaves of the forest when autumn hath blown, that host on the morrow lay withered and strown. For the angel of death spread his wings on the blast and breathed in the face of the foe as he passed, and the eyes of the sleepers waxed deadly and chill, and their hearts but once heaved and forever grew still. And there lay the steed with his nostril all wide, but through it there rolled not the breath of his pride, and the foam of his gasping lay white on the turf and cold as the spray of the rock-beating surf. And there lay the rider, distorted and pale, with the dew on his brow and the rust on his mail. And the tents were all silent, the banners alone, the lances unlifted, the trumpets unblown. And the widows of Asher are loud in their wail, and the idols are broke in the temple of Baal, and the might of the Gentile, unsmote by the sword, hath melted like snow in the glance of the Lord. Thank you.
With the final student recitation for today, Lucy Shanan.
This is The Honey by Mahogany L. Brown. There is no room on this planet for anything less than a miracle. We gather here today to revel in the rebellion of a silent tongue. Every day we lean forward into the light of our brightest designs and cherish the sun, praise our hands and throats, each incantation, a jubilee of a people dreaming wildly, despite the dirt beneath our feet or the wind pushing against our greatest efforts. Soil creates things. Art births change. This is the honey. And doesn't it taste like a promise? Where your heart is an accordion and our laughter is a soundtrack. Friend, dance to this good song. Look how it holds our names. Each bone of our flesh homes sings, welcome. Oh, look at the gods dancing as the rain rains against a steely skyline, where grandparents sit on the porch and nod at the spectacle, in awe of the perfection of their grandchildren's faces. Each small discovery unearthed in its own outpour. Tomorrow, our daughters will travel the world with each poem, and our sons will design cities against the backdrops of living museums. Yes, our children will spin chalk until each equation bursts a familial tree, rooted in miraculous possibilities and alive.
We've reached the end of round 3. We'll soon be ready to announce the 2022 Washington State Poetry Out Loud champion. Before we make that announcement though, we have a little more jazz to refresh us, and let's learn a little more about our 9 student champions from interviews we conducted with them as part of the virtual state final competition on March 12th.
I actually found out about it one day before the program closed, like for signing up. My English teacher, Miss Mack, she's the best. She showed us Poetry Out Loud in class one day, and I decided that I wanted to do it. So I went to the website for Arts Washington, and I applied one day before the deadline. I think it was like 3 hours before it closed. Well, I really like Emily Dickinson, and the TV series Dickinson, so I wanted to do a poem written by her, actually. But then when I got looking at Emily Dickinson poems, they were all very short, and I wanted to do a longer poem. So I found this one about her, and I thought that it would fill the need for Emily Dickinson in my life.
Well, reciting poetry for me is kind of new. I just started this year, but I feel like it really helps me encapsulate my emotions through the poem and connect with the poetry in a different way that I never would have thought of. So it helps me recollect my thoughts into the poem, and it allows me to exemplify myself through the poetry.
Do you feel like you learned something about the poet?
Oh, yes. I feel like the poet really encapsulated their emotions and how they went through their life in this poem. And I feel like it really, really reflects on a lot of people. It really resonated with me personally.
Well, my dad started talking to me about how instead of trying to like morph my words to like be like how the poet made it to be, I need to actually do it how I would do it. Like I'm in drama and everything, so I think I'm good at my words. And so I tried my best to keep part of me in the poem in my ways of speaking, and keeping that in the back of my brain really helped me with that.
Well, I didn't really like poetry that much, but then I found this poem and I really, really liked it. And I just found out that there were like poems that actually made sense that are really good. It's an experience. I think the thing I learned about myself through poetry was that I realized how much cartoons I watched as a kid and how much I used that to shape my world. And like that poem, it was a lot.
When I was looking for poems, I think you said at the start of the program that one of the goals with Poetry Out Loud is connecting students with poems that they have an attachment to or can understand. And for me, the last 2 years have come with a lot of loss, and unfortunately, that does include the death of a couple of very close family friends. And it was something that was really weighing on my mind when we started doing Poetry Out Loud in my classroom. And for me, Evan Boland really beautifully describes the experience of loss, but also realizing how everything is interconnected, and you don't ever really lose people forever when you can realize how they're still around you. And especially living in Seattle, where it is constantly rainy in a way similar to Ireland, I felt like the idea of water and the natural elements of rain and the weather around us, but also feeling a really profound sorrow. I think Evan Boland connects those two things very eloquently in a way that is beautiful to read, but I also felt gave me words that I didn't really have to understand how I was feeling.
Well, for me, I never recited poems before, and I gave it a try, and I really enjoyed it, and I really think you can learn something from reciting poems, and you can really amaze people with how well you do it and how you recite it.
It makes me feel unjudged and kind of free because I don't necessarily do poetry in front of other people. So when I'm reciting it through Poetry Out Loud, I feel more like I'm accepted to be able to do it because I've loved poems my whole life. And I wanted to do this poem since 7th grade and see how far I could make it. So really, I just am happy to be able to recite.
Well, I found this poem pretty early on in the year. I found it, I think, in around September. And that was right around when we were going back to school in person full time. And I had a lot of anxiety around that, and I felt very conflicted. And I feel like this poem is a lot about conflict and the hope that we can find through it. That last stanza especially just really spoke to me in that, it's hard to see the hope sometimes, and it's hard to see all the people that are supporting you, but they're there, and they're always there for you. And that last stanza just got me through a lot of the anxiety that I had about, COVID and returning to school. And this poem has just been such a source of hope for me.
I think that it appeals to me because the message that I got out of it is that the world as we know it is always changing. It's always evolving, always moving. And the author, I think, is mourning the loss of a world that he knew and that he loved. And he finds solace in his love, the one thing that he can control and kind of stop from changing. And I think that appeals to me because the world is changing very rapidly at this point. And I feel a very strong grief for the world that I knew when I was younger. And it's a bit odd since I'm only 18, but I think that's probably the biggest reason that it appeals to me. I think that I would tell them that this opportunity, giving students the ability to express themselves through poems that they chose personally, is something that can, one, really help grow love for poetry in English, and two, just give them more room to express themselves, and it would be really liberating, I think.
I hope you'll be interested in cheering on the Washington State champion, whoever that turns out to be. The national semifinals will be streamed Sunday, May 1st, and the finals will be streamed Sunday, June 5th. Anyone can tune in from anywhere. There will be info about how to get to the webcast posted on the ArtsWA Washington website and the National Poetry Out Loud website, poetryoutloud.org. Now it's time to end the suspense and announce the final standings and our state champion. Honorable mention goes to Serena Jensen. In second place, Kate Gemmel. That means our 2022 Washington State Poetry Out Loud champion is Lucy Sheenan. This wraps up our Poetry Out Loud Washington State Final competition. It has been a pleasure to present this program and these awesome students to you today. Thank you again to all our program collaborators, and especially to all the parents and teachers who supported these fantastic students. Don't forget, view and download a PDF booklet about today's program at www.arts.wa.gov/poetryoutloud. Find more about the Washington State Arts Commission and all its many programs at arts.wa.gov, and find out more about Poetry Out Loud nationwide at poetryoutloud.org. We're going to close out by acknowledging the many people who made this program possible in our state this year, and with one last number from Cream Candy and Greg Feingold. Thank you all, and have a great night, everyone.